Welcome to No Tourists Allowed, a podcast where two recognized travel industry executives with a combined 71 years on the inside of travel and technology give up their secrets to the thing everyone wants to do. Travel better, spend less, and see more of the world. Here are your hosts, Mike Putman and James Ferrara.
Good day, everyone. I'm Mike Putman.
And I'm James Ferrara. And 70 of those years of experience are Mike Putman's. Just one is
You
mine.
got to come up with a better shtick. I mean, this is like the third week in a row he said something similar. But yeah, it has. It's been quite the journey, and look forward to even more journey coming up.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, Mike, we've had some great episodes this season. We have some great ones coming up, but I would say I have been most excited about this one because we have a very special guest with us this week. And I say that because I think that we're simpatico, you know, in a lot of ways we are thinking about some of the same things in travel. And I think that we're trying to impart some of the same thinking and advice to our respective audiences. So it's really cool to have somebody visit with us like that, who is related in the way she thinks about travel. Least I hope so. I think maybe we are paying ourselves a compliment by claiming that.
Yeah, I would say related in travel spirit, just from my reading about Paige, and yeah, I think we're pretty much aligned.
So let's welcome, please, Paige McClanahan, a travel writer, a New York Times travel writer, now a new book author, um, a host of a podcast, and an all-around very interesting person in the travel space. Paige, welcome. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I am so delighted to connect with you guys. And yeah, I think you're right. I think we are kindred spirits on this topic. So I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Good. Now, we have a tradition here where Mike treats our guests to a short rapid fire series of questions about your personal travel preferences. And it's a way for our audience and us to get to know you and for all of us to warm up a little bit. So with your permission, going to turn it over to the maestro.
Okay. Thank you. I'm excited.
I won't get too personal with the travel questions, but well, first of all, Paige, where are you coming in from today? Where are you today?
I am at home in Paris, France right now.
You don't have a French dialect though. You had to be from the States somewhere, right?
I am very much American. I grew up in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, but I haven't lived in the United States since 2008. So I've been an American abroad, kind of bouncing around into various places. Since 16 years ago this month, I left the United States.
No, right. Well, fellow Carolinian, I'm in South Carolina.
Oh, right. Whereabouts in South Carolina?
I live in Greenville.
Nice. Okay. I grew up in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, but I have a cousin who lives in Greenville.
All right. Well, shout out to the New Yorkers, please. Thank you very much.
Well, so Paige, I'm going to ask you just a few rapid fire questions. So if you just give us the first thing that comes to your mind, and if you want to share why, that's okay. If you're not, we'll move on to the next one.
Okay.
What is your favorite hotel brand or individual property, and why might that be?
Oh my gosh, that's a really good one. Okay, I probably have to go with individual. Oh my gosh, I can't remember the name of it. Oh, that's awful. Let me think of another one.
Where is it?
Gorgeous little sort of architect hotel in Barcelona where I stayed when I was there reporting something for a story, and it was beautiful and recommended by a local architect and urban planner. And it was gorgeous and had this beautiful like rooftop bar, but I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, so I probably shouldn't say that one.
Right.
Okay. Let me think of something else.
It becomes difficult for those of us who travel so much, right? It's hard.
Okay, well, yeah, I'll go with a very famous hotel in Chamonix, France, which is not far from where I used to live in the French Alps. And it's the Albert Premier Hotel, which is like very chic, and they have a very nice spa and very nice dining room, and it's right there like below Mont Blanc, and it's like kind of chic. If you want a sort of chic hotel experience in the Alps, you can't go wrong with the Hôtel Albert Premier in Chamonix.
We'll have to write that one down.
Yeah.
What's your favorite destination? And at that favorite destination, is there something you like to do there, like an activity, or is there some type of authentic restaurant that you like to visit?
Wow. So a favorite travel destination that I go to on a regular basis or that I've ever been to just once?
Yeah, that you've ever been to.
My favorite place that I've been to in the last couple of years, I would say is actually, and this is gonna be maybe a little bit surprising, but Liverpool, England. I was there, for the book. I was there, to report, um, for the book, last summer, and I went in with very low expectations and just was so impressed by the city and the people and the vibrancy of the city and the cultural scene and the music scene and the museums. It's just really kind of up and coming. And I was there at, beautiful. There was beautiful summer weather when I was there, and I met some really fascinating and really friendly people. And it really kind of captured my heart and captured my interest. So I would love to go back to
Got
Liverpool.
a great football team there in Liverpool as well.
Yeah, a couple of them actually. But pick your side carefully.
Very true. Now, when you travel, are you a person that likes, or when you travel, do you like an aisle seat or a window seat?
Oh, typically I gotta go for the window seat because I wanna see everything that's happening outside. Yeah, definitely would go for a window seat
All
usually.
right. And the last question, which this divides our audience in half, are you a carry on or a checked luggage person?
Oh, 1,000% carry on only. 1,000%.
Thank you very much, Paige.
If you have to, you can check your bag, but, I mean, these days, even when I travel excuse me, even when I travel with my kids, and we'll each have a little carry-on bag and going away for a couple of weeks, like, between the 3 of us, like, each having a little carry-on, that's enough. That's enough to get by on, and just, like, yeah, the hassle of carrying it, and then you have to pay for it now, and the risk that it's gonna get lost, of course, like, yeah, carry-on is the way to go.
I'm taking my two daughters to Paris in July, and then we're going up to Germany so they can see Taylor Swift, and then back to London. And so we're gonna be gone a lot. We're gonna be moving around a good bit, but I told them carry on or you're not going.
Yeah, it's totally doable. It's totally doable. But that's so cool. You'll be here. Taylor Swift was here in Paris just these last few days, and I had dinner last night with a woman who came from all the way from San Francisco to watch Taylor Swift 2 nights in a row. I was very impressed.
Yeah, I want to when I die, I want to come back as one of Mike's kids. I think um, we debate the carry-on checked luggage thing here. I think every episode, and all I want to say is, it's all well and good until you're a man with like a size 12 foot, and you have to bring a couple of pairs of shoes with you to go with your business suits.
This is the challenge. Yeah, no, I'm with you on that, especially winter and you're going somewhere with snow and you need some real shoes. Yeah.
Well, we're really here to talk about, I think, some more substantive things, especially with you having just completed a book, and your book is due out in June, I believe, right?
Right? June 18th.
And it's called The New Tourist, which is just more evidence that we're somehow connected because we are no tourists allowed. You've got The New Tourist. Tell us about the book, Paige.
Well, thank you so much for your interest. And yeah, I'm so excited to share this book with the world. I mean, the idea for the book really came from the fact that 6 years ago, I moved to a little village in the French Alps with my family. And this little village is entirely dependent on tourism. And I had been a travel writer before, and I had been a journalist who reported on like economic and political issues. But I had never kind of taken that journalistic lens and applied it to the world of travel and tourism. I kind of wrote travel features and stuff like that. So, but living in this place and really seeing how tourism gave life to this whole community. I mean, it's really the basis of the economy. It's the basis of the social scene. It's the reason why, there's a big grocery store in town and why there's a skating rink and a movie theater in town. It kind of captured my attention. And then also, as a resident of this tourist destination, I also saw, of course, the downsides of having a huge number of people come in and then leave and come in and leave, and the challenges with crowds and parking and things kind of overflowing sometimes. So so I started to just kind of ask questions and look around me more, and then and I had a good relationship with my editor at the New York Times, and I started pitching more and more stories that were kind of exploring tourism, not necessarily from a critical perspective, but just from a really um, questioning perspective, and really and really appreciating tourism for the enormous social, economic, cultural, and political force that I could see that it is. And so, I started writing stories about places like Barcelona and Pompeii and Mont Blanc. They're in this sort of neighborhood in Chamonix, and really looking at the impacts of tourism. And from there, my interest in this topic just really snowballed. And I found that the writing that I was doing for a newspaper wasn't as in depth as I wanted it to be. So I got the idea for a book where I could really go in depth and help my readers kind of appreciate what I had appreciated in moving to this village, that tourism is such a powerful force. And it can be really positive, but it can also be really destructive, right, if we don't get it right. So I want to wake people up to the stakes of what we do when we, explore the world, and help so that we can all kind of try to navigate these questions in a more constructive way. So that's kind of the motivation for the book. But happy to go into more detail if you'd like.
Well, I think it's important, first of all, that our listeners know that what a qualified writer you are on this subject, because you have a history of writing, really thoughtful articles about travel for the New York Times and elsewhere. So tell us how that, what are there examples from the book? Are there takeaways from the book? Who is this new tourist and how should we act?
I love to pick apart for a moment maybe this the word tourist itself, which is something that I kind of go into a little bit in the book, and the feelings. And I want to encourage people to explore like the feelings they might have around this word tourist, because I think it is something that it's complicated. People have complicated feelings around it. But I think my takeaway. So I kind of divide. I kind of came up with this sort of idea of this spectrum. And on one end of the spectrum, we have an old tourist, and on the other end, we have a new tourist. And the old tourist is, you might think of as somebody who talks too loudly and like looks for Starbucks and McDonald's when they go overseas and this kind of thing. But I think of an old tourist as a sort of it's a more cerebral definition, I guess. But it's somebody who sees the place they're visiting as purely there for their consumption. They want to tick off a box. It's there to kind of serve some personal need of their own. They kind of close their minds to the fact that they might actually have an impact on this place they're visiting. And they don't really open up and implicate themselves, and they don't try to engage with the people they're visiting. It's a really kind of a transactional consumerist interaction, being a tourist, an old tourist. Whereas on the other end of the spectrum, and this is where I think a lot of us really want to go, and a lot of us are really trying to go, but maybe sometimes we're not entirely sure how to get there. But the new tourist is somebody who, really implicates themselves and opens themselves up to the experience and opens their hearts and minds to be changed when they travel. And the new tourist is somebody who, is aware of and does their best to educate themselves about the impacts of their presence on the place. So, who does a little bit of research on the place before they go, and who uses that information to inform the decisions they make in terms of, what time of year they're going to go and what kind of place they're going to stay in, what kind of, places are they going to avoid at certain times of day, how they're going to spend their money when they're there. And I think just by, so it's a mindset shift more than anything between the old tourist kind of consumerist mindset and the new tourist, really more of kind of an explorer, a questioner, somebody who's going to open their hearts and minds to the experience. So I think, the new tourist is where I've been trying to get for a long time. And I see this book as my kind of best and biggest effort to really get to the land of the new tourist myself, in going around the world, meeting people, asking questions, and learning about how tourism functions in some of the world's most iconic tourist destinations.
Yeah, that really, really closely aligns with the virtues of this podcast. And we refer to what you're calling the new tourist. We kind of refer to them as travelers, and what you're calling the old tourist as tourist. Um, but there is so much to be said about travelers or new tourists, is the way you've described them. Not only the impact, but what they also can take away from the experience. How did you organize or think about organizing your book?
Okay, yeah, thank you for that question. I'll start by saying it took me a long time to figure out, but and a lot of work with my editor because it's such a such a huge topic. Like, how do you slice and dice it? How do you package this in a way that's going to be engaging and really compelling for the reader, right? And so I wanted to start the book by really placing readers in the current moment. And so to do that, like where are we right now with travel and tourism? How do we get here? And so I thought it would be interesting to take readers back to kind of 50 years ago. So we flash back to kind of the early 1970s. And to tell the story of how we got from kind of the 1970s, where tourism was really very low level, in terms of international tourism especially, to where we are today. I thought, let me tell the story of one company, of one travel brand that I felt like kind of epitomized, kind of represented this enormous boom of travel. So I tell the story of this company called Lonely Planet. And I tell the story of Tony and Maureen Wheeler and how they, had their sort of epic adventure across Europe and Asia, and then ended up producing a series of guidebooks that were basically a blueprint for the further expansion of tourism. And so, in telling that story and recounting that history, I take readers back to a point where, not that long ago, right, 50 years ago, if you wanted to travel from the United States to Bolivia, or you wanted to travel around Thailand, if you wanted to travel around Thailand in like, the 1960s, the most recent guidebook that was written in English that you could use was published in like, I think 1928 or 1929. In South America, there was really very little information. And so it was like a kind of this like group of baby boomers, starting with Tony Maureen Wheeler, but also Hilary Bratt in the UK, Rick Steves in the US later on, Mark Ellingham, who founded Rough Guides. They really opened up so much of the world to restless young baby boomers who really wanted to see the world in a different way. So I tell the story of the rise, and then of course Lonely Planet becomes this big brand, and then we have sort of the pushback against the Lonely Planet effect, and we kind of come into the early 2000s and the shift to digital. So, but I hope in kind of latching it on to these two people, Tony and Maureen, and I got to interview Tony a couple of times for the in my research, which was pretty cool. We sort of place I can help the reader understand the just how significant it is that tourism is as big a phenomenon as it is today, and it's not at all. It's just so different from where we were 50 years ago. So I wanted to start off with that history, and then after that, the chapters I kind of take up a different question in each chapter. And in each chapter, I'll draw on examples from different parts of the world. So it's kind of based around a theme rather than a place. And I thought that would help keep it interesting and keep it lively and engaged. I also really wanted to bring out the human element of tourism. And so I kind of have a lot of, you might think of them as like characters, but obviously real people who I spent a lot of time with, who appear in the book, who live in or work in or are affected by tourism, that occurs where they live. So yeah, each chapter kind of dives into different issue, and then the final chapter, I really kind of make my case. I respond to this woman, this very noted philosopher who wrote Agnes Callard, who wrote an essay in the New Yorker last summer called "The Case Against Travel." And so I kind of respond. I have the final chapter is sort of a lengthy response to that with some of my favorite anecdotes from travel and going into the history a bit too, to really make the case that I think that all of us staying home is not the answer that we need right now. And then finish with an epilogue that I hope really kind of touches people's hearts and also offers a hopeful vision for the future.
Wow. Um, you mentioned a number of places in your articles, and I'm sure some of the same places or new places in your book. Um, I saw mentioned somewhere to Belfast, and to me, that's a really good illustrative um, place because we were there recently, Mike and I, for an event in the last couple of years. And I was really blown away on how beautiful Belfast is, the architecture, how lovely the people were, and yet what a troubled past. And now the city of peace, and I really thought that arc for a place and the way we go visit that place now, and the what we can leave behind us there too as travelers in a positive way. I just think there's so much to be said about all this. We could do a series of podcasts with you. You mentioned in some of your articles, um, Iceland, I think, was one of your articles was about Iceland. And interesting comment about um, uh, what how people should act maybe when they go to Iceland, I think it was. But are there examples like that from your book, specific places that you would share with us?
Absolutely. Yeah, I would love to. I mean, maybe starting with Iceland, I had a fantastic visit there. And for the New York Times, I did a story for the New York Times while I was in Iceland where I actually got to sit down with Eliza Reid, the country's first lady, who is also, she has been a UN ambassador for tourism and the Sustainable Development Goals. And actually, before her husband was elected president, she was the editor of the in-flight magazine for Iceland Air and was a freelance travel writer, Eliza Reid, who was born and raised in Canada. So I had a really fascinating conversation with her about the kind of the links between tourism and the political sphere, which I find fascinating. But yeah, I mean, Iceland is a really cool destination. I also, in the book, write about this canyon in a very remote corner of southern Iceland where it was created as a tourist destination by tourists, really, through social media, through kind of geolocation tags. It's a beautiful sort of out of the way canyon, and then it gained traction on social media, and then Justin Bieber showed up with a film crew and filmed a music video there. And then, 500 million people watched the music video, and the place gets a lot more visitors. So I think Iceland is a fascinating example of a place where a lot of kind of tourist destinations have been created by the crowds, which is, kind of fascinating and can be constructive in some ways, right? Bringing a lot of income into really rural areas. But of course, you have to have the infrastructure there to kind of greet those people. So I kind of get into that. Um, Other examples of places I go to, one that really surprised me was Saudi Arabia. I went to Saudi Arabia, and you write about this in the last chapter of the book. And I write about how I was actually pretty scared to go. And, because I'd read about the country's human rights record and about how they, treat women and journalists. But I ended up having a very sort of fascinating and eye-opening experience in Saudi Arabia, which again, I relate in chapter 7. So Saudi Arabia, I write about Hawaii. I write a lot about Hawaii, which is actually where my older sister has lived in Hawaii since 2003. So I've been to the state many times over the years, and the way that tourism works there has always fascinated me. And so I went back in the summer of 2022 for an extended period and got to meet with a ton of people who work in tourism, who are affected by tourism, who govern tourism in the state. And that's really interesting because tourism is so integral to the state's economy, and it's been having more and more issues in terms of resident support for tourism in Hawaii. And so I interviewed some people who are very in favor of more growth in tourism, and I spent some time with a native Hawaiian guy named Kuike, who we got along really well. And he was incredibly gracious to me and took me around and showed me around his hometown of Waimanalo on Oahu. He's very anti-tourism. Like, he says all tourists should go home. That's the solution. And so I spent some time with him because I wanted to understand his perspective, and I do my best to relay that in a constructive way. That's not the only voice that I include, right? But I thought it was really important to include that perspective, as well as the more positive, kind of views of tourism in Hawaii, which I kind of include in the epilogue there. But yeah, Hawaii is a place that fascinates me, and I knew when I started, thinking about the book that I wanted to include Hawaii in there too. But just rapid fire other ones: Amsterdam, Barcelona, Chamonix in the French Alps, and a little bit of Cambodia in there as well. And Liverpool, as I mentioned before.
Great. Hawaii had a real sea change last year when the longtime Hawaii Visitors Bureau contract was awarded for the first time to a native Hawaiian owned company and not the longtime, like 20-year company that's been doing it. Thought that was a very significant move for Hawaii. You talk sometimes about sustainability, and there is environmental sustainability, but there is also cultural sustainability. There is a stewardship of destinations like the canyon that you're talking about. All of those people visiting get to appreciate something really beautiful in the world, but at the same time, they could trample it. So I don't think we talk enough about that kind of sustainability, cultural sustainability, which is harder to touch, harder to see sometimes than uh, the effect on an environment. So very, very interesting.
I'm just really curious as what was your journey? What's your journey been like up to now? How did you get into travel writing? How did you get associated with the New York Times, et cetera?
Oh, wow. Oh, gosh, yeah. How long do we have here, Mike? But I'll say my very first travel writing gig, um, yeah, was back in 2010. I was living in Sierra Leone, West Africa, which is not your typical sort of tourist destination, but I was working as a freelance journalist, writer, and editor from Sierra Leone, and I had done no travel writing up until that point, but this is 2010, and I was hired to prepare the second edition of the Bratt Guide to Sierra Leone, which was, and I'm pretty sure remains, the only dedicated country guide to Sierra Leone. Like, in Lonely Planet, there's like 20 pages on Sierra Leone or something in the Lonely Planet West Africa guide. So that was my first travel writing gig. Was like I spent basically a year and a half, I think it took me, to travel all over the country and visit like anyone and everyone who had anything to do with welcoming guests or feeding visitors or offering any sort of a tour. And at the same time, I was trying to pitch travel articles about Sierra Leone, which, I mean, James, you mentioned earlier about the about Belfast and tourism in a kind of a post-conflict setting. And Sierra Leone had had this gruesome civil war in the 1990s. And I was there when I was there. The country had been at peace for more than a decade, but it was so hard to drum up interest in travels, in travel stories about this kind of remote corner of West Africa. But from there, after Sierra Leone, I lived in England for 2 years, and I was writing a lot for the travel section of the Washington Post, doing features. I was also writing about economic stuff for The Guardian at the time, but I wrote about I did several stories about England for the Washington Post, just travel features. And then from there, I started pitching the New York Times, and I got started my first piece in the New York Times was a 36 hours piece. I did a 36 hours in Cardiff, Wales. And I think my track record of features for the Washington Post helped me land that first gig. So I was really starting off with the kind of typical travel writing stuff before, alongside the other journalism that I was doing. I saw them as two different kind of camps, and one was kind of the fun stuff, and the other was the kind of more serious journalistic stuff. And the story of my more recent journalism and this book is kind of the merging of those two, taking this lens and applying it to this activity. I don't want to go on for too long about it, but that's kind of how I got started.
Fascinating. What a journey.
Is there anything that you do to make your travel more easier for you or more memorable? Is there something you do at the airport or something you do when you arrive at your accommodations? Little hack maybe you could give to our audience.
James's hack is when he arrives to a hotel, he sends himself flowers.
Everybody makes fun of me, but this is true.
There's an idea I could get behind.
I don't like sterile hotel rooms. So it warms things up a little bit, a little cozy, a little colorful.
I like it. I like it. Yeah, might steal that one from you there, James. No, I would say my one piece of kind of concrete travel advice would be that I would really encourage people, and I really love to do this myself, to hire a local tour guide. Like, even if you're going to, let's say, a European city that you're very comfortable navigating on your own using Google Maps or, some guidebook or TripAdvisor rankings or whatever it is, actually find a local tour guide. It could be somebody with a specialty in a particular type of history or a particular kind of aspect of the culture. And not only are you going to get, and go on a walking tour of the city or the natural area or the village or wherever you are. And not only are you going to get, that person's personal perspective on this place, which hopefully they call home, hopefully you can find someone who's actually from that place. You'll also really have the chance to build a human connection, a personal connection with someone who is from that place. And for me, that's really, the way of the new tourist is really, the way of somebody looking to make a genuine human connection when you travel. And if you're just kind of hiding behind your guidebook or staring into your phone and kind of following a predetermined track, it doesn't really give you a chance to have a human interaction that has a possibility to really change your perspective or, shift your mindset on something. So hire a local tour guide. It'll be a treat. You'll learn more than you expected to, and you might just make a friend. You never know.
Excellent advice. Our listeners know that last season, I think it was, Mike, we took them point by point through our manifesto here at No Tourists Allowed, and it included a lot of related advice. Things like try to use local transportation, try to speak the language, attempt to speak the language, and then right on down to your advice of having human connections, create the opportunities for human connections. So it's been wonderful having you with us, Paige. Your new book, The New Tourist, is out June 18th, and we want everyone to look for it, because if you enjoy listening to this podcast, guys, this sounds like a great book for you. We really appreciate you joining us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I am so happy to have connected with you guys.
Wow, what an interesting guest Paige was. Hopefully, we can have her back and very soon to talk more about her experience and tell us more about her book after it gets launched.
Yeah.
Yeah, one other piece of news I wanted to share is that I have just learned personally about a new service that is basically an airline for dogs, believe it or not, James.
What I love in their marketing is they say it's a real white paw experience, like a white glove experience.
So this is the name of the company, listeners, is Bark Air, and you can go to bark.co and you'll find out more information if you're interested. But this company operates Gulfstream G5s. So these are private jets, which G5s are on the bigger side of private jets. They operate out of the New York City area, out of Westchester. They fly to London. They fly to Van Nuys. They fly to several places, but which is not necessarily so interesting. But what is so interesting is that they have designed these flights to work so that you can travel with your dog, but the experience is much about your dog as it is about yourself. So, this is not going to be a low cost option, right? This is going to be a high cost, high service option, but they put some really unique things in the service delivery for the dogs,
Including beverage of the dog's choice. You could have bone broth or water or whatever. A lot of things designed to reduce stress on the animal. So I actually love this idea, and people are willing to pay money for their pets. So people who have money are willing to spend it on pets, and there are treats and snacks and a concierge.
Yeah, and they have pheromones. They've got lavender scented refreshment towels and other treats to help dogs get settled in, just as you said.
So can I say that they are treating the dogs better than most airlines treat the people?
Without a doubt. Well, and most people don't fly on Gulfstream G5s, which are, probably $7,000-8,000 an hour to operate if you owned it, and it's probably I don't know, $35 million aircraft. So,
Well, we can have this as a goal, Mike, to be treated like a dog on Bark Air.
Well, and speaking of being treated with royalty, not like most dogs, but like bark air dogs, is the winners that are going to go to Jamaica on our giveaway.
We gave some hints, and last week revealed then that we're going to Jamaica, but then we drilled down a little further and gave some hints about where in Jamaica we would be going.
My hint was it's home to one of my favorite restaurants, which is called Scotchy's, which is they're called jerk centers, not to be confused with something else, but these are it's a little roadside grill where they make jerk chicken.
Is this a place where I over ordered?
Yeah. Well, that you could fill in any restaurant blank with where you've ordered.
All right. So we know we're going to Jamaica. We've given a hint for where in Jamaica. This is a 4-day, 3-night, all inclusive vacation for two that we're giving away in just a couple more weeks. So, drum roll, please, Mike. Where in Jamaica did your clue lead us to?
Yes, to Montego Bay, the capital of St. James. So, um, it'll be great because that's where the flights from the U.S. Land, and there you'll be picked up and transferred to your luxury resort, and then you'll have everything taken care of you: your meals, your entertainment while they're on the property, as well as your drinks. So there's still time to register. All you have to do is go to notouristallowed.com, click on the giveaway link, give us your email address. You can also, if you haven't entered, you can guess the mystery destination, which we just gave you. So it's not so much of a mystery, but this will get you some extra entries that will only increase your chances of getting to go on this fabulous vacation. So uh, please go to No Tourist Allowed and sign up.
And if you know anyone who hasn't who hasn't heard the podcast before, maybe you'd like to introduce them if you think they could use an all-inclusive vacation in Jamaica, and who couldn't. So share it with your friends. Let's see if we can get some other people to sign up for it, and also to listen to what we have to say here on No Tourist Allowed. It was a great episode today with Paige McClanahan, talking, very much our language, right? Singing our song about travel and tourism. So really loved it. Thank you for being here with us. Enter for the drawing, win that free vacation in Montego Bay, Jamaica, and come back with us next week.
Yes, thanks for now. Bye bye.